I trusted my brother with my apartment key while I was overseas, and he repaid me by stealing my engagement ring to cover his rent. What he didn't know was that the simple family heirloom he sold for $800 was actually appraised at $340,000, and now he's demanding I split the B insurance money with him. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. I stepped off the plane at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport with that familiar mix of exhaustion and relief that comes after 3 weeks abroad. My work conference in Singapore had been intense. Back-to-back meetings with international clients, presentations that stretched into the evening, and barely enough time to process the 12-hour time difference. All I wanted was to collapse on my couch, order takeout, and sleep for about 16 hours straight. The ride home in the Uber felt longer than usual. Maybe it was the jet lag, or maybe it was because I'd been away from my little sanctuary in Capitol Hill for what felt like an eternity. My apartment wasn't much, a modest one-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a converted brownstone, but it was mine. Well, mostly mine. The rent was steep, even by Seattle standards, but I'd worked hard to afford it. I'd given my brother Kyle the spare key before I left. He'd been going through a rough patch, lost his job at the tech startup where he'd worked for 2 years, and his girlfriend had just broken up with him. "Can you water my plants?" I asked him. "Maybe check the mail, make sure everything's okay?" He'd agreed immediately, seeming almost grateful to have something to do. The moment I unlocked my apartment door, something felt off. It wasn't anything obvious. No overturned furniture, no broken windows. The plants were alive, though barely. My mail sat in a neat stack on the kitchen counter. But there was an energy in the space that felt disturbed, like someone had been living here rather than just visiting. I wheeled my suitcase into the bedroom, and that's when my stomach dropped. My jewelry box sat on the dresser where I'd left it, but the lid was open. I never left it open. My hands trembled as I walked over, my mind already racing through possibilities. Inside, most of my pieces were still there. The silver bracelet from my college graduation, the pearl earrings my mother had given me, and a few costume pieces I'd collected over the years. But my engagement ring was gone. The empty spot in the velvet slot felt like a punch to the gut. I stood there, staring at that small indentation where the ring should have been, trying to convince myself I was wrong. Maybe I'd moved it before I left. Maybe I'd put it somewhere else for safekeeping. I tore through my apartment like a woman possessed. Every drawer, every pocket, every conceivable hiding place. Under the bed, in the bathroom cabinet, inside shoeboxes in my closet. Nothing. The ring had vanished. My phone was in my hand before I'd even fully processed what I was doing. "Kyle's number." 3 rings, then his voice, casual and upbeat. "Hey, Trish, you're back. How was Singapore?" "Kyle." My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Where's my engagement ring?" Silence on the other end. Not the confused silence of someone trying to remember something, but the guilty silence of someone who'd been caught. "Kyle, answer me right now." "Look, Trish, I can explain. Where is it?" He sighed, and I could practically hear him running his hand through his hair, the way he always did when he was nervous. "I sold it." "But listen, before you freak out, you sold it?" My voice cracked. "That was my engagement ring." "From Daniel!" "What gave you the right? I needed the money for rent." His voice rose defensively. "I was about to get evicted, Trish. What was I supposed to do?" "And it's not like you even wear it anymore. It's been sitting in that box for 2 years since Daniel died." My vision blurred. He was right that I didn't wear it. How could I? Every time I looked at it, I saw Daniel's face, heard his laugh, remembered the way he'd proposed on that beach in Oregon with the sunset painting everything gold. Wearing it felt like reopening a wound that never quite healed. But keeping it safe, knowing it was there, that had been my way of holding on to him. "That doesn't mean you get to take it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "How much did you get for it?" $800. I went to that pawn shop on Pike Street. The guy said it was nice, but nothing special. just a simple gold band with a small diamond. I figured, you figured wrong. I sat down hard on my bed. Kyle, that ring was appraised at $340,000. The silence that followed was so complete I thought the call had dropped. What? You heard me. $340,000. That's impossible. It was just a plain ring. There's no way. It was Daniel's grandmother's ring. It's been in his family for 4 generations. The diamond is from the 1890s, and the setting is platinum, not gold. It's a European cut diamond. They don't make them like that anymore. My voice was mechanical, reciting facts I'd learned when Daniel first gave it to me, when we'd had it appraised for insurance purposes. It's a certified antique. The appraisal certificate is in my filing cabinet. I could hear Kyle breathing on the other end, quick and shallow. I didn't know, he finally said. Trish, I swear I didn't know it was worth that much. If I had known, you still shouldn't have taken it. Anger surged through me, burning away the shock. It wasn't yours to sell, Kyle. Whether it was worth $8 or $8 million, it wasn't your property. I know, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. But listen, we can fix this. I'll go back to the pawn shop tomorrow. I'll buy it back. With what money? I demanded. You just told me you couldn't even make rent. Where are you going to get $800? I'll figure it out. I'll borrow it. And what if they've already sold it? What if someone else bought it? The full reality of the situation was beginning to sink in. Kyle, do you understand what you've done? That ring is irreplaceable. It's not about the money. It's the last thing I have from Daniel's family. His mother gave it to him before she died. It was supposed to stay in the family forever. I'll fix this, Kyle said again, but his voice sounded hollow. I promise, Trish. I'll make this right. We hung up shortly after, with Kyle swearing he'd go to the pawn shop first thing in the morning. I sat in my bedroom as the Seattle evening darkened outside my window, staring at the empty jewelry box, trying to process everything. The ring was gone. My connection to Daniel, to his family, to the life we'd planned together, all of it pawned for $800 to cover my brother's rent. I pulled out my phone and called my insurance company. They were closed, but I left a message. Then I dug through my filing cabinet until I found the appraisal certificate, dated 3 months before Daniel and I were supposed to get married. Before the car accident that took him from me. The paper felt heavy in my hands. I read through the details again, even though I'd memorized them years ago. The diamond weight, the clarity grade, the historical significance of the piece. At the bottom, the appraised value, $340,000. Kyle had sold a piece of history, a family treasure, an irreplaceable symbol of the love I'd lost, and he'd gotten less than 1% of its actual value. My phone buzzed with a text from Kyle. Can't sleep. Going to the pawn shop right when they open. I'll get it back. I promise. I didn't respond. I just sat there in the growing darkness, wondering how something so precious could slip away so easily, and whether there was any way to get it back before it disappeared forever into the vast marketplace of the city, lost among thousands of other pawned treasures that no one realized were priceless. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the ring. The way the diamond caught the light, the intricate engraving on the platinum band that Daniel had traced with his finger the day he proposed. 4 generations, he'd said. And now it's yours. Forever. Forever hadn't lasted very long. By 6 a.m, I'd given up on sleep entirely. I made coffee, showered, and pulled on jeans and a sweater. My phone showed 2 missed calls from Kyle at 5:47 a.m. He'd left a voicemail. I'm already here, waiting outside. They open at 9. I'll call you as soon as I know something. 3 hours. I had to wait 3 more hours to find out if my brother's impulsive decision could be undone. I tried to distract myself with unpacking, sorting through the emails that had piled up while I was gone, anything to make the time pass faster. Nothing worked. At 8:30, I grabbed my keys and headed out. I couldn't just sit there anymore. The pawn shop on Pike Street was exactly the kind of place you'd expect. Cramped, cluttered, with bars on the windows and a neon sign that flickered erratically. Kyle was already there, pacing back and forth on the sidewalk, his coffee cup crushed in his hand. Trish. He looked like he hadn't slept either. You didn't have to come. I told you I'd handle it. This is my ring, Kyle. I'm not sitting at home while you handle it. He opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. We stood in uncomfortable silence until a heavy-set man in his 50s unlocked the door from inside. Kyle practically lunged forward. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now back to where we left off. The interior smelled like old leather and desperation. Display cases lined the walls. Watches, jewelry, electronics, musical instruments, all tagged with prices that told stories of financial emergencies and last resort decisions. Behind the counter, the man who'd let us in eyed us, with the practiced wariness of someone who'd seen every scam and sob story imaginable. We're not open for another 15 minutes, he said. Please? Kyle's voice cracked. I sold you a ring yesterday. A platinum ring with a diamond. I need to buy it back. The man's expression didn't change. 30-day holding period. State law. Can't sell it back during that time. Relief flooded through me so intensely my knees almost buckled. It was still here. We could still get it back. That's fine, I said quickly. We understand. We just want to buy it back. How much? The man pulled out a worn ledger and flipped through pages. Platinum band, European cut diamond, approximately 1 carat. Sold to us for $800. The buyback price is $1,200. $1,200. Kyle's voice rose. You gave me $800 yesterday. That's how it works. We're a business, not a charity. Take it or leave it. I was already pulling out my credit card. We'll take it. Hold on. The man's eyes narrowed. Why the sudden urgency? Yesterday, this guy couldn't get rid of it fast enough. Now you're both here before we even open, ready to pay 50% more? It's a family heirloom, I said, keeping my voice steady. There was a misunderstanding. We just want it back. He studied us for a long moment, and I could see the gears turning in his head. Something was off, and he knew it. Finally, he nodded slowly. Let me get it from the back. He disappeared through a doorway behind the counter. Kyle and I stood in tense silence. I could hear him breathing beside me, quick and nervous. The man returned empty-handed. My heart stopped. It's gone, he said flatly. What do you mean, gone? My voice came out strangled. You said there's a 30-day holding period. You can't sell it yet. Didn't sell it. Had a break-in last night. Smash and grab. They took about 15 pieces from the case. Your ring was one of them. The world tilted sideways. This couldn't be happening. It couldn't. You're lying, Kyle said. This is some kind of scam. You saw us coming and you're trying to... The man's face hardened. You calling me a liar? Get out. Both of you. Now. Wait, please. I held up my hands. Did you file a police report? Is there any way to track it? He pulled out a business card and slid it across the counter. Detective Sarah Chen, Seattle PD. She's handling the case. Talk to her. Now get out before I call security. Outside, the morning air felt too cold, too bright. Kyle was talking, his words coming out in a rapid stream. Apologies, explanations, promises to make it right. But I couldn't process any of it. The ring was gone. Not just sold, but stolen. The chances of recovering it now had dropped from slim to nearly impossible. I'm calling my insurance company, I said, cutting off whatever Kyle was saying. Insurance? But what, Kyle? The ring is gone. Stolen from a pawn shop because you sold it without permission. What else am I supposed to do? I walked away from him, phone already dialing. The insurance company put me through to a claims specialist named Margaret Torres, who listened patiently as I explained the situation. So the item was stolen from your residence? She asked. No. It was taken from my apartment by my brother without permission, sold to a pawn shop, and then stolen from the pawn shop. A pause. I see. And you have the original appraisal certificate? Yes. From 2023. Appraised at $340,000. Another pause. Longer this time. Ms. Robinson, I need to be honest with you. This claim is going to be complicated. The item wasn't stolen directly from you. There's a question of whether your brother had implied permission to access your belongings, whether the pawnshop transaction constitutes a legal sale, and whether our policy covers theft once removed from your immediate possession. So you're saying you won't pay? I'm saying it's going to require investigation. We'll need police reports, documentation of the pawnshop theft, proof that you didn't authorize the sale. It could take months. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. File the claim anyway, I said. I'll get you whatever documentation you need. After hanging up, I found Kyle sitting on the curb, head in his hands. I sat down next to him, too exhausted to stand anymore. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am so sorry. Why didn't you just ask me for the money? My voice was flat, emotionless. If you needed rent money that badly, why didn't you call me in Singapore? I would have sent it. You know I would have. I was embarrassed. He looked at me, and his eyes were red. You're always so together, Trish. Good job, nice apartment, savings account. And I'm 32 years old. Can't keep a job, just got dumped, about to be evicted. I didn't want to be the loser little brother asking his sister for handouts again. So instead, you became the thief's little brother who stole an irreplaceable family heirloom. He flinched, but didn't argue. We sat there in silence as the city woke up around us. Cars passing, people walking to work, normal Friday morning activities. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching it happen to someone else. My phone rang. Unknown number, Ms. Robinson? This is Detective Chen with Seattle PD. The owner of Pike Street Pawn gave me your information. I understand you're the original owner of one of the items stolen in last night's break-in? Yes, a platinum engagement ring with a European cut diamond. Can you come down to the station? I have some questions, and I'll need to see documentation, appraisals, photos, anything that proves ownership. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I stood up, brushing off my jeans. Kyle stood too, uncertain. I'm coming with you, he said. No, you're not. I looked at him, and for the first time in our lives, I saw him as a stranger. You've done enough, Kyle. Go home. I'll handle this myself. Trish, I mean it. Leave. I walked to my car without looking back, leaving him standing on that sidewalk. In the rearview mirror, I could see him watching me drive away, but I didn't care. The brother I thought I knew, the one I'd trusted with my apartment, my belongings, my memories, that person didn't exist. Maybe he never had. The police station loomed ahead, and with it, the beginning of what I knew would be a long, painful process of trying to recover something that might already be lost forever. Detective Sarah Chen was younger than I expected, probably in her mid-30s, with sharp eyes and an efficient demeanor that suggested she didn't waste time on pleasantries. Her desk was buried under case files, but she cleared a space and gestured for me to sit. Tell me everything from the beginning, she said, pen poised over a notepad. I walked her through the timeline. The Singapore trip. Giving Kyle the key. Coming home to find the jewelry box open. The phone call. The pawn shop. She took notes without interrupting, her expression neutral. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Do you have the appraisal certificate? I pulled it from my bag and slid it across the desk. She studied it carefully, her eyebrows rising slightly when she reached the valuation. $340,000. She looked up at me. And your brother sold it for $800. He didn't know what it was worth. He thought it was just a simple gold band, but you knew. It wasn't a question. You had it appraised. You knew exactly what you had. Something in her tone made me defensive. Of course I knew. It belonged to my late fiancé's family. It was insured. Is insured, she corrected. Present tense. You still have coverage on this ring? Yes, she made a note. And your brother. Did you give him explicit permission to take items from your apartment? I gave him permission to water my plants and check my mail. Not to go through my personal belongings, but he had a key. Access to your apartment. No forced entry. Detective Chen's eyes were steady on mine. You see the problem here? From a legal standpoint, this gets murky. Your brother will likely claim he had implied permission to be in your home, to access your things. A good lawyer could argue he didn't commit theft. He made a bad decision about shared family property. It wasn't shared. It was mine. Can you prove that? Do you have documentation showing the ring was gifted specifically to you? A will, a transfer of ownership? My mouth went dry. Daniel had proposed with his grandmother's ring. There was no formal paperwork, no legal transfer. It had just been understood that it was mine now, part of our future together. It was my engagement ring, I said quietly. Daniel gave it to me when he proposed. I understand, and I'm not trying to make this harder for you. I'm preparing you for what's coming. Your insurance company will ask these same questions. They'll want to establish clear ownership before they pay out a claim this size. She pulled out a form. Let's start with the police report. I'll need photos of the ring if you have them. I scrolled through my phone, hands shaking slightly. There, a photo from the proposal. Daniel on one knee on Cannon Beach, the Pacific Ocean behind him, the ring box open in his hand. I zoomed in on the ring and showed her. She studied it, comparing it to the description on the appraisal certificate. Good, send that to me. Do you have any other photos? Different angles? I found two more. One from when I'd photographed it for the insurance company, another from a dinner party where the light had caught the diamond and I'd taken a picture to show my mother. Detective Chen had me email all three to her. Now, about the pawn shop break-in. I reviewed the security footage this morning. 3 suspects, faces covered, in and out in less than 4 minutes. They knew what they were doing, went straight for the jewelry cases, bypassed everything else. This wasn't random. What does that mean? It means someone knew what was in that shop. Either they'd been chasing it or someone tipped them off. She paused. How many people knew your brother sold the ring? The implication hit me like cold water. You think Kyle was involved in the theft? I'm not accusing anyone. I'm following leads. Your brother sells a ring worth hundreds of thousands for $800. Less than 24 hours later, the shop gets robbed and that specific ring is taken. It's worth asking questions. Kyle's an idiot, but he's not a criminal. He had no idea what the ring was worth when he sold it. Are you sure about that? Detective Chen's voice was gentle but firm. Did he ever see the appraisal certificate? Did you ever mention the value to him? I opened my mouth to say no, then stopped. Had I? Years ago, right after Daniel died, I'd been devastated, barely functional. Family had come by to help. My mother, my sister Rachel, Kyle. Had I mentioned it then? Has the appraisal certificate been visible in my filing cabinet? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe it was a difficult time. She made another note. I'll need to interview your brother. Do you have his current address and phone number? I provided the information, feeling like a traitor even as I did it. Kyle had betrayed me first, I reminded myself. He'd stolen from me. If he was somehow involved in this robbery, if he'd orchestrated it to get the ring back and sell it properly this time, no. I couldn't let my mind go there. Kyle was selfish and impulsive, but he wasn't that calculating. What happens now? I asked. We continue investigating the break-in. We'll check known fences, pawn shops in surrounding areas, and online marketplaces. A ring this distinctive with this value, if someone tries to sell it, there's a chance we'll catch wind of it. But I need to be honest with you, Ms. Robinson. The recovery rate for stolen jewelry is less than 5%. Most pieces get broken down, the stones reset, the metal melted. If this ring makes it to the right buyer who knows what they have, it might stay intact. But there are no guarantees. The words settled over me like a heavy blanket. Less than 5%. Thank you for being honest, I managed. I'll be in touch as the investigation progresses. In the meantime, document everything. Every conversation with your brother. Every interaction with the insurance company. If this goes to civil court, which it might, given the value, you'll want a paper trail. Civil court. The words sounded so clinical, so formal. This was my family, my brother. How had we gotten here? I left the police station in a daze. The parking lot stretched out before me, cars glinting in the autumn sun. Everything looked normal, ordinary. Inside the station, my life was being cataloged and investigated. Outside, the world just kept turning. My phone buzzed. Rachel, my older sister. Patricia. Kyle just called me sobbing. What the hell is going on? I got in my car before answering, needing privacy. Did he tell you what he did? He said he sold your ring and now you're not speaking to him. He made it sound like you were overreacting. Did he mention the ring was worth $340,000? Did he mention it's now been stolen from a pawn shop and maybe gone forever? Silence, then. 340? Patricia, are you serious? Completely serious. Daniel's grandmother's ring? The one I had appraised when we got engaged. Kyle went into my apartment while I was in Singapore, took it from my jewelry box without asking, and sold it for $800 to cover his rent. Oh my God. Rachel's voice had gone quiet. Patricia, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Kyle made it sound like he said it was just sitting in your drawer unused and he needed help. It was unused because I can't bear to wear it, Rachel. Because every time I look at it, I see Daniel. But that doesn't mean Kyle gets to steal it and sell it like it's a used DVD. No, of course not. God, what was he thinking? A pause. What can I do? How can I help? The offer nearly broke me. After hours of police questions and insurance complications and legal implications, someone was simply asking how they could help. I don't know, I said honestly. The police are investigating. The insurance company is reviewing my claim. I don't even know what Kyle is doing. Sitting in his apartment feeling sorry for himself, probably. Do you want me to talk to him? I don't care what you do with Kyle. I'm done with him, Rachel. I trusted him with my home, and he violated that trust in the worst possible way. He's still your brother. He's a thief. The word tasted bitter in my mouth, but it was true. He stole from me. The fact that he's family doesn't change that, Rachel sighed. Okay, I understand. But Patricia, for what it's worth, I know Kyle screwed up massively, but I don't think he's a bad person. Just a desperate, stupid person who made a terrible decision. The road to hell is paved with terrible decisions, I said. Look, I need to go. I have to call the insurance company back, send them the police report, and start the claims process. Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. I mean it. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a long moment, staring at nothing. My phone showed 17 unread messages. Friends asking how Singapore was, colleagues checking on a project deadline, automated notifications. Normal life continuing on as if nothing had changed, but everything had changed. My brother had stolen from me. A piece of Daniel's family history was gone, possibly forever. And I was left sitting in a police station parking lot, trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces of a disaster I never saw coming. I started the car and headed home, where an empty jewelry box waited on my dresser, a constant reminder of what I'd lost and what could never be replaced. 3 days passed before Margaret Torres from the insurance company called back. 3 days of checking my phone obsessively, jumping at every notification, hoping for news from Detective Chen. Nothing. The ring had vanished into Seattle's underground market like a stone dropped into dark water. Ms. Robinson, I've reviewed your claim with our legal team. Margaret's voice was professionally sympathetic, the tone of someone about to deliver bad news. Unfortunately, we're going to need additional documentation before we can process this. I was at my desk at work, pretending to focus on the quarterly reports in front of me. What kind of documentation? I sent you the police report, the appraisal certificate, photos of the ring. We need proof of ownership transfer. The ring originally belonged to Daniel Coffey's family. We need documentation showing that ownership legally transferred to you upon your engagement or through his will. There is no documentation. He gave it to me when he proposed. That's how engagement rings work. I understand, but without a legal transfer of ownership, the ring technically still belongs to the Coffey estate. We'd need permission from his family to process a claim of this size. My stomach dropped. Daniel's family. His father had died when Daniel was young, and his mother had passed 2 years before we met. He had one sister, Caroline, who I'd met exactly 3 times before the accident. After Daniel died, Caroline had handled the funeral arrangements with cold efficiency and made it clear she wasn't interested in maintaining a relationship with me. You weren't married, she'd said at the wake. You're not really family. His sister barely speaks to me, I said. She didn't even attend his memorial service that I organized. Nevertheless, she's his next of kin. If you can get a signed statement from her acknowledging that the ring was gifted to you permanently, we can proceed with the claim. And if I can't? A pause. Then we have a problem. The claim amount is substantial, $340,000. We can't pay out that kind of money without clear ownership documentation. I'm sorry, Ms. Robinson, but those are our requirements. After she hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen, not seeing anything. Caroline Coffey. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year, not since she'd sent me a terse email asking me to stop sending flowers to Daniel's grave because it's time to move on. But I didn't have a choice. I found her number in my old contacts and dialed before I could talk myself out of it. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Her voice was clipped, professional. You've reached Caroline Coffey. Leave a message. Caroline, it's Patricia Robinson. I know we haven't spoken in a while, but something's happened and I need your help. Could you please call me back? It's important. It's about Daniel's grandmother's ring. I hung up and tried to refocus on work, but it was useless. Every few minutes, I'd check my phone. Nothing. By lunch, I'd given up any pretense of productivity. I grabbed my coat and headed to a coffee shop near the office, needing to get away from the sympathetic looks my coworkers kept shooting me. Rachel had clearly talked to our mother, who'd called me twice already. I'd let both calls go to voicemail. My phone rang as I was ordering. Unknown number, Ms. Robinson? This is Detective Chen. Do you have a moment? My heart rate spiked. Did you find it? Did you find the ring? Not yet, but I need to inform you that we brought your brother in for questioning this morning. I nearly dropped my coffee. You what? Standard procedure? We're interviewing everyone connected to the case. He came in voluntarily, answered our questions, and cooperated fully. A pause. Ms. Robinson, I have to ask, has your brother contacted you in the past 72 hours? No, I told him to stay away from me. He's been trying to reach you. 23 calls and 37 text messages, according to his phone records. I pulled out my phone and checked. All the calls were blocked. I'd blocked Kyle's number the day after the pawn shop. But I could see the notification count. 43 blocked messages. I blocked him, I admitted. I didn't want to hear his excuses. You might want to unblock him. Or at least read the messages. Why? What did he say to you? I can't discuss the details of our interview. But Ms. Robinson, your brother is genuinely distraught. Whatever his mistakes, I don't believe he had any involvement in the robbery. His alibi checks out, and frankly, he doesn't fit the profile. Then who took it? That's what we're trying to determine. The pawnshop owner, Marcus Webb, has a history. Nothing proven, but there have been complaints about items mysteriously disappearing from his inventory. We're looking into his possible connections to local fences, so he might have stolen it himself. Staged the break-in? It's one theory we're exploring. But Ms. Robinson, I need you to understand something. Even if we determine Webb orchestrated the theft, recovering the actual ring becomes exponentially harder. If he knew what he had, he's already moved it through channels we can't easily trace. After the call ended, I sat in the coffee shop staring at my blocked messages. 43 messages from Kyle. I took a breath and unblocked his number. The messages flooded in. Time stamped over the past 3 days. Trish, please talk to. I know you're angry, but please. The police want to question me. They think I set up the robbery. I would never do that, you. Have to believe me, I talked to some guys I know from when I worked. At the tech company, one of them knows someone who deals in high-end jewelry. I'm trying to get information about where the ring might have gone. Please, Trish, I'm trying to fix this. Messages went on and on. Some were apologetic, some desperate, some angry at being blocked. The most recent one, from an hour ago. The police just let me go. They grilled me for 2 hours. Everyone thinks I'm a criminal now. I know I messed up, but I'm trying to make this right. Please talk to me. I stared at the screen, emotions warring inside me. He'd betrayed my trust, stolen something irreplaceable, and now he wanted sympathy because the consequences were catching up to him. But another part of me, the part that remembered Kyle at 7 years old, teaching me to ride a bike. Kyle at 15, punching a guy who'd spread rumors about me at school. Kyle at 25, sitting with me in the hospital after the accident, holding my hand while I cried. That part felt a twinge of guilt. I typed, "Meet me at Riverside Park in an hour." His response came in seconds. "Thank you. I'll be there." Riverside Park was neutral territory, a place we'd gone as kids, far enough from both our apartments that it felt separate from everything. When I arrived, Kyle was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking the water. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing the same jacket he'd had on at the pawn shop. He stood when he saw me approaching. "Trish, don't." I held up a hand. "Just sit down." We sat at opposite ends of the bench, a careful distance between us. "I'm sorry," he started. "I know I keep saying it, but the insurance company won't pay the claim without proof I own the ring. They want a statement from Caroline Coffey saying Daniel gave it to me permanently." Kyle's face fell. "Caroline? But she hates you, I'm aware." I left her a message. She hasn't called back. I looked out at the water, gray and choppy in the October wind. "Detective Chen says you're trying to track down the ring through some contacts." "Yeah, I know it's probably useless, but I have to try. There's this guy Marcus who I worked with at the startup. His brother deals in high-end stolen goods, estate jewelry, designer watches, that kind of thing." I reached out, asked if he'd heard anything about a vintage diamond ring hitting the market. And? Nothing yet. But he said he'd ask around. These guys, they have networks. If the ring surfaces anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, there's a chance he'll hear about it. I turned to look at him. "Kyle, why did you really take it? And don't give me the rent excuse again. You could have taken my laptop, my TV, anything else. Why that ring specifically?" He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I was angry at you." "What?" "After Daniel died, you shut down. You stopped going out, stopped seeing friends. Mom would call me worried because you weren't answering her calls. Rachel tried to get you to go to therapy, and you refused. And then you threw yourself into work, got that promotion, moved into a nicer apartment, acted like everything was fine." He looked at me, and his eyes were red. "But you kept that ring in your jewelry box like a shrine. You moved on with everything except that. And I thought if it was gone, maybe you'd finally let go." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You took it to help me?" "I took it because I'm a selfish idiot who convinced himself he was doing you a favor while also solving his own problems. I'm not trying to justify it, Trish. I know what I did was wrong, but you asked why that ring, and that's why." We sat in silence. A jogger passed by, headphones in, oblivious to the wreckage of our conversation. "I need that statement from Caroline," I said finally. "If you really want to help find the ring, use your contacts. Talk to whoever you need to talk to. Because right now, that's the only thing that matters." "I will." "I promise." I stood to leave, then turned back. "Kyle, don't call me again unless you have actual news about the ring. I can't do this back and forth. I just can't." His face crumpled, but he nodded. I walked back to my car, leaving him on that bench. My phone buzzed with a notification. Email from Caroline Coffey. My hands shook as I opened it. "Patricia, I got your voicemail. I'm not sure why you're contacting me about the ring. When Daniel died, all his possessions reverted to his estate, which I inherited as his only living relative. If you need documentation of ownership, I'm afraid I can't help you. The ring was never legally yours. Caroline, I read it 3 times, each word sinking in like stones. The insurance company wouldn't pay without Caroline's statement. Caroline was claiming the ring belonged to Daniel's estate. And the ring itself was missing, possibly being broken down for parts at this very moment. I'd lost everything." I sat in my car, reading Caroline's email over and over until the words blurred together. The parking lot around me had emptied. It was after 6 now, the sky darkening with that early autumn dusk. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Margaret Torres at the insurance company. I couldn't face calling her back, not yet. Not when I had no answers. Caroline's words echoed in my head. The ring was never legally yours. 4 years. I'd worn that ring for 4 years during our engagement, had it resized to fit my finger, had it appraised and insured under my name. And now Daniel's sister was claiming it belonged to his estate? I needed a lawyer. A quick search led me to Jennifer Ashford, a Seattle attorney specializing in estate disputes and property law. Her website showed a confident woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an impressive list of credentials. Her office had evening hours. I called before I could second-guess myself. Ashford Legal, this is Jennifer. Hi, my name is Patricia Robinson. I know it's late, but I have an urgent situation involving a disputed engagement ring worth $340,000. Do you have any availability to discuss this today? A pause. $340,000? Yes, I can make time. Can you be here in 20 minutes? Her office was in a renovated building in Fremont, all exposed brick and modern furniture. Jennifer Ashford met me at the door personally, her handshake firm and professional. Tell me everything, she said once we were seated in her office. I laid it all out. The proposal. Daniel's death, the ring sitting in my jewelry box for 2 years, Kyle's theft, the pawn shop robbery, the insurance company's requirements, and finally, Caroline's email claiming the ring belonged to Daniel's estate. Jennifer took notes, stopping me occasionally to ask clarifying questions. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. This is complicated, but not impossible. Let's break down the issues. First, engagement ring ownership. In Washington state, an engagement ring is generally considered a conditional gift, conditional on marriage. If the marriage doesn't occur due to the death of one party, case law typically awards the ring to the surviving fiancé. The engagement wasn't broken. It was ended by tragedy. You should have a strong claim to ownership. Relief flooded through me. So Caroline's wrong? Not entirely. Here's where it gets tricky. Was there a will? Daniel died in a car accident. He was 31. He didn't have a will. Jennifer nodded slowly. That's common for people that age, but it complicates things. Without a will, his estate would have gone through intestate succession, meaning state law determines who inherits. As his only living relative, Caroline would have inherited everything not otherwise legally disposed of. But you just said the ring should go to me? Should, yes. But Caroline could argue that since you weren't married, the ring was still technically his property at the time of death. She could claim that you were merely holding it temporarily and that it should have been returned to his estate. It's a weak argument, but it's an argument. My head was spinning. What do I do? First, we document everything. When did Daniel propose? Do you have any witnesses? Any written communication? Texts, emails, where he referred to it as your ring? I pulled out my phone, scrolling back through years of messages. There, texts from Daniel's mother before she died, 2 months after our engagement. Patricia, I'm so happy Daniel gave you my mother's ring. It belongs with you now. Take care of it and take care of my boy. I showed Jennifer. She smiled. That's good. That's very good. The previous owner explicitly acknowledged the transfer of ownership to you. Do you have any other communication from Daniel's family? I searched further. An email from Caroline herself, sent a week after the proposal, cold and formal. Daniel informed me he gave you grandmother's ring. I suppose congratulations are in order. Caroline acknowledged it too. Jennifer said, reading the email. She knew the ring was given to you. That undermines any later claim that it should revert to the estate. So I can prove I owned it? You can build a strong case. But Patricia, there's a bigger problem. The ring is missing. Even if we establish your ownership, even if the insurance company agrees to pay, we still need to demonstrate the actual loss. The fact that your brother took it and sold it, that's going to raise questions. What kind of questions? Insurance fraud questions. They'll want to make absolutely certain this isn't a scheme, that you and your brother didn't plan this to collect the insurance money. I felt sick. That's insane. Kyle had no idea what the ring was worth. Can you prove that? Did you ever tell him the value? Was the appraisal certificate somewhere he might have seen it? I thought back to those awful weeks after Daniel died. The apartment was full of family, everyone trying to help. Documents scattered everywhere as I dealt with funeral arrangements and insurance paperwork. The appraisal certificate had been in my filing cabinet, but had it been locked? I couldn't remember. I don't know, I admitted. It's possible he could have seen it. Jennifer made a note. The insurance company will investigate thoroughly. They'll interview Kyle, review his financial records, and look for any evidence of planning. You need to be prepared for that. He's already been questioned by the police. They don't think he was involved in the robbery. That's different. The police are investigating a crime. The insurance company is protecting their bottom line. They'll be even more thorough. She pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we need to do. I'll draft a letter to Caroline, citing the case law on engagement rings, and including the communications from her and Daniel's mother. We'll request she provide a sworn statement acknowledging your ownership of the ring. If she refuses, we can threaten a civil suit. How long will that take? Depends on whether she cooperates. If she fights it, we could be looking at months of litigation. But based on what you've shown me, we have a strong case. Most attorneys would advise her to settle rather than fight. And the insurance company? I'll also draft a letter to them, outlining the legal basis for your ownership claim. That might be enough to satisfy their requirements. If not, we escalate. I left Jennifer's office an hour later with a retainer agreement signed and a thin thread of hope. She'd promised to have letters drafted within 48 hours. It wasn't the immediate solution I'd wanted, but it was a movement forward. My phone rang as I was walking to my car. Kyle. What? Trish, I heard something. Marcus's brother came through. There's a dealer in Portland who specializes in estate jewelry. High-end stuff. No questions asked. Someone tried to sell him a European cut diamond earlier this week. Vintage. About 1 carat. My heart stopped. Did he buy it? No. He said the seller was nervous, asking for cash only, and wanted to move it fast. That spooked him, so he passed. But he got a description. Platinum setting, intricate engraving on the band. That's it. That's my ring. Did he get a name? A phone number? No. Guy paid cash, wouldn't give contact info. But Trish, if someone's trying to sell it in Portland, that means it's still intact. They haven't broken it down yet. We need to tell Detective Chen. I already did. I called her right before I called you. She's contacting Portland PD, seeing if they can work with this dealer to set up a sting if the seller comes back. For the first time in days, I felt something other than despair. Kyle, if this works, I know it doesn't fix what I did. But maybe it helps. After we hung up, I sat in my car, hands trembling. The ring was still out there, whole. Someone was trying to sell it, which meant there was still a chance. I called Jennifer Ashford back. Good news? She asked. Maybe. There's a lead on the ring's location. If the police recover it, does that change anything with the insurance claim? It changes everything. If the ring is recovered, you don't need the insurance payout. You have the actual property back. But Patricia, don't get your hopes up too much. These things rarely pan out the way we want them to. I know. But it's the first real lead we've had. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for a call from Detective Chen. Nothing came. At 2 a.m, I finally gave up and went to sit in the living room, looking at photos of Daniel on my laptop. There was one from the proposal, taken by a stranger we'd asked to capture the moment. Daniel was laughing, sliding the ring onto my finger, the ocean wind whipping my hair around. We looked so happy, so certain that this was just the beginning of our story. I'd never imagined it would end with me hiring lawyers and chasing leads through underground jewelry networks, fighting with my brother and begging Daniel's sister for help. My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Chen, time-stamped 2:47 a.m. Portland PD is working the lead. The dealer agreed to cooperate. If the seller returns, they'll contact us immediately. Try to get some rest. I read the message 3 times, then set my phone down. The ring was out there somewhere in the Portland night. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I had reason to believe I might actually get it back. Morning came too quickly. I'd managed maybe 2 hours of sleep before my alarm dragged me back to consciousness. The first thing I did was check my phone. No updates from Detective Chen, no missed calls. Just the usual morning notifications and a text from Rachel. Mom wants to do family dinner this weekend. Please come. We need to talk about Kyle, I typed back. Can't think about family dinners right now. Then deleted it and wrote instead, maybe. I'll let you know. Work was impossible. I sat through a morning meeting about Q4 projections, nodding at appropriate moments while my mind was 3 hours south in Portland, wondering if the mystery seller would return to that jewelry dealer. My boss, Sharon, pulled me aside afterward. Patricia, are you okay? You've seemed distracted all week. Family emergency, I said, which was both true and woefully inadequate. I'm handling it. Take some time off if you need to. You've got plenty of PTO accumulated. I considered it, then shook my head. I'm better off staying busy. At lunch, my phone finally rang. Detective Chen. Ms. Robinson, we have a development. Portland PD made contact with the jewelry dealer this morning. The seller came back. My heart nearly exploded. Did they catch him? Do you have the ring? Not yet. The dealer stalled him, saying he needed to have the stone authenticated before making an offer. The seller agreed to come back tomorrow afternoon at 2. Portland PD is setting up surveillance. When he returns, they'll move in. Can I be there? A pause. Ms. Robinson, this is an active police operation. That's my ring. I have the right to identify it. You can identify it after recovery. If we arrest the suspect, you'll need to come to Portland to confirm the item is yours. But that happens after the operation, not during. Fine. Just promise me you'll call the second you have it. You'll be the first person I contact. After we hung up, I did something I hadn't done in years. I left work in the middle of the day. I couldn't sit in that office, pretending to care about sales figures and client presentations, while the most important thing in my life hung in the balance. I drove to Daniel's grave. I hadn't been in months, maybe longer. The cemetery was quiet, the autumn leaves creating a carpet of red and gold across the grounds. His headstone was simple. Daniel Joseph Coffey, 1994 to 2023. Beloved son and brother, not fiancé. Caroline had made the arrangements. I sat on the grass beside his grave, not caring that the damp was seeping through my jeans. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I'm sorry I let Kyle take the ring. I'm sorry I couldn't keep it safe. Your grandmother's ring, 4 generations in your family, and I lost it in less than 2 years. The wind rustled through the trees. A crow called in the distance. Caroline thinks it belongs to her now. She sent me an email saying it was never really mine. Maybe she's right. Maybe I was just holding it temporarily, and I was never supposed to keep it. I wiped my eyes. But Daniel, when you gave me that ring, when you got down on one knee on that beach, you said 4 generations and now it's yours. You said forever. And I believed you. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer Ashford. Caroline's attorney contacted me. She's willing to provide a statement acknowledging your ownership in exchange for 20% of any insurance payout. I read it twice, anger building with each word. Caroline wanted money. She didn't care about the ring, about family history, about honoring Daniel's wishes. She just saw an opportunity for a payday. I called Jennifer immediately. 20%? She has no legal claim to the ring, and she wants $70,000? It's a negotiating tactic. She knows we can beat her in court, but she also knows litigation takes time. She's betting you'll pay to avoid the hassle. I won't. Tell her attorney we'll see her in court. Patricia, I have to advise you, if the goal is to satisfy the insurance company quickly, paying Caroline might be the faster route. The goal is to get my ring back. And if the Portland operation works, I won't need the insurance company at all. Fair enough. I'll draft a response declining her offer. That evening, I finally responded to Rachel's text. Can't do dinner this weekend. But can we meet for coffee tomorrow morning? She replied instantly. Yes, usual place? 8 a.m.? Our usual place was a cafe in Ballard that we'd been going to since college. Rachel was already there when I arrived, sitting at our regular table by the window, 2 lattes waiting. You look terrible, she said as I sat down. Thanks. You always know just what to say. I'm serious, Patricia. When's the last time you slept through the night? What did you want to talk about? I deflected. Rachel sighed. Kyle. Mom is worried sick about him. He's holed up in his apartment, barely eating, convinced you're never going to forgive him. I don't know if I will forgive him. He made a mistake. He stole from me, Rachel. He violated my trust and took the one thing I had left from Daniel. That's not a mistake. That's a betrayal. He's your brother. He's family, so that makes it okay? I could hear my voice rising. Because we share DNA, he gets a pass on stealing a $340,000 ring? The cafe had gone quiet. People were looking. I took a breath, lowered my voice. I'm sorry. I can't deal with Kyle right now. I can barely deal with myself. Rachel reached across the table and took my hand. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm not even asking you to talk to him. I just want you to take care of yourself. You're running yourself ragged with lawyers and police and insurance companies. Mom and I are worried about you. There's a lead on the ring. Portland PD might recover it tomorrow. Her eyes widened. Patricia, that's wonderful. Why didn't you tell me? Because I don't want to get my hopes up. And I don't want to hear about Kyle or family dinners or anything else until I know whether this is real. We talked for another hour, carefully avoiding the subject of Kyle. Rachel told me about her kids, her husband's new job, the renovation they were planning, normal life things that felt alien to me now. When did my life stop being normal? When Daniel died? Or earlier, when I'd put that ring in a jewelry box and tried to pretend I could preserve the past forever? That night passed even slower than the previous one. I tried to watch TV but couldn't focus. I tried to read, but the words swam on the page. I finally gave up around midnight and just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching the hours tick by. 12 hours until the Portland operation, 11 hours, 30 m, 9.5 hours. My alarm went off at 7. I'd maybe slept an hour total. I showered, made coffee, tried to eat toast and gave up after 2 bites. My phone stayed silent. No updates from Detective Chen at work. I didn't even pretend to be functional. I shut my office door and told my assistant I wasn't taking calls. At 1:45 p.m., I couldn't stand it anymore. I called Detective Chen. Ms. Robinson, I told you I'd contact you. It's almost 2 o'clock. Has anything happened? The suspect hasn't arrived yet. These things rarely happen on schedule. It could be 2, could be 3, could be he doesn't show at all. He has to show. He has to. I understand this is difficult, but you need to let us do our job. I will call you the moment we have news. She hung up. I sat in my office watching the clock. 2 p.m. came and went. Then 2:15, 2:30. At 2:47 p.m., my phone rang. Detective Chen, we have him. Her voice was tight with controlled excitement. The suspect is in custody. We recovered the ring. Ms. Robinson, I need you to come to Portland to identify it. How quickly can you get here? I was already grabbing my keys. I'm leaving now. Where do I go? She gave me the address of the Portland Police Bureau's Central Precinct. Ask for Detective Marcus Reeves when you arrive. He's expecting you. The drive to Portland was a blur. I barely remembered getting on I-5. Barely noticed the traffic or the rain that started halfway there. All I could think was, they have it, they have the ring, it's over, it's finally over. The Portland Police Bureau was a modern building downtown. I parked haphazardly and ran inside, gave my name at the desk. 5 minutes later, a tall black man in his 40s appeared. Ms. Robinson? I'm Detective Reeves. Thank you for making the trip. If you'll follow me. He led me through a maze of corridors to a small room with a metal table. On the table sat a clear evidence bag. Inside the bag was my ring. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tears springing to my eyes. It was real. It was here. The platinum band caught the fluorescent light, the diamond glinting exactly the way I remembered. Is this your property? Detective Reeves asked formally. Yes. My voice cracked. Yes, that's Daniel's grandmother's ring. That's mine. Can you describe any distinguishing features? I leaned closer, not touching the bag. The band has an engraving inside. It says EM to JC 1924. Elizabeth Murphy to Joseph Coffey. Daniel's great-grandparents. And there's a tiny chip on one of the prongs. I noticed it when I had it appraised. The jeweler said it didn't affect the stone's security. Detective Reeves made notes. The engraving matches. We'll need to hold it as evidence for now, but once the case is processed, you'll be able to claim it. How long? Depends on whether the suspect cooperates, whether we can trace it back to the original theft. Could be a few weeks, could be a couple months. Months. After everything, I still couldn't have it back immediately. But it was here. It was safe. That was what mattered. Who was the seller? I asked. Detective Reeves hesitated. The suspect claims he bought it from someone at a bar. Cash transaction, no names. We're still investigating, but his story might be checked out. He might just be a middleman. So whoever stole it from the pawn shop is still out there? Possibly. But Ms. Robinson, we recovered your property. That's the important thing. He was right. I should have felt relieved, victorious even. But standing there looking at the ring through plastic, still out of reach, I just felt exhausted. Detective Chen had been right. These things rarely work out the way we want them to, but at least the ring was found. At least I hadn't lost it forever. That had to be enough. 6 weeks later, I stood in the Seattle Police Department's property room, signing paperwork to officially reclaim the ring. Detective Chen handed me the small velvet box, not the original, which had been lost somewhere in the chaos, but a simple navy blue one the department had provided. "Open it," she said with a slight smile. "Make sure everything's in order." My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. There it was, the platinum band gleaming softly, the European cut diamond catching the overhead lights exactly the way it had that day on Cannon Beach when Daniel proposed. I touched it gently, half expecting it to disappear again. "It's perfect," I whispered. The suspect pleaded guilty to trafficking in stolen property. Got 2 years. We traced the ring back to the pawn shop owner, Marcus Webb. Turns out he's been running this scam for years, staging break-ins, filing false police reports, selling valuable items through middlemen. Your ring was just the one that finally caught up with him. So Kyle was right. Webb staged the whole thing, he did. And your brother's cooperation helped us build the case. Those contacts he reached out to, the information he gathered, it led us directly to the Portland connection. She paused. He's called me 3 times asking if you got the ring back. I told him I couldn't discuss an open case, but now that it's closed, I thought you should know. After leaving the police station, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to Kyle's apartment in Georgetown. I'd been there once before, right after he moved in, but that felt like a lifetime ago. I knocked. Footsteps, then the door opened. Kyle looked different, thinner, with shadows under his eyes, but clean-shaven and wearing clothes that didn't look slept in. He stared at me, speechless. "Can I come in?" I asked. He stepped aside wordlessly. His apartment was small but tidy, surprisingly so. No dirty dishes piling up, no trash overflowing. Either he'd cleaned for a visitor he wasn't expecting, or he'd been trying to get his life together. "I got the ring back," I said, still standing near the door. "Picked it up this morning." His face crumpled with relief. "Thank God, Trish, I'm so—" "I know you're sorry. You've said it 100 times. I took a breath. "Detective Chen told me you helped with the investigation, that your contacts led them to Portland. It was the least I could do. The absolute least after what I— Stop." I held up a hand. "Just stop apologizing for a minute and listen. What you did was unforgivable. You violated my trust, you stole something irreplaceable, and you sold it for almost nothing because you were too proud to ask for help." "All of that is true." He nodded, not meeting my eyes. "But you also spent 6 weeks tracking down leads, talking to people you barely knew, trying to fix what you broke. That doesn't erase what you did, but it means something. Does this mean you forgive me?" I considered the question. Did I? Could I ever look at Kyle the same way again? "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm not ready to forgive you yet. Maybe I never will be. But Kyle, you're my brother. That doesn't give you a free pass, but it means I can't just cut you out of my life forever, no matter how much I want to sometimes." "What does that mean? Where do we go from here?" "It means we start over, slowly. You want to rebuild trust? Then you have to earn it. Get your life together. Find a job. Stop making impulsive decisions and thinking you can fix everything afterward. I looked around his apartment. It looks like you've already started. I got hired last week. Tech support position at a gaming company. It's not glamorous, but it's steady income. He managed a weak smile. First paycheck. I'm paying you back that $800 from the pawn shop. Keep your money. Get your own place, build up your savings. That's how you make this right. By not putting yourself in a position where you're desperate enough to do something stupid again. He nodded, and I could see tears in his eyes. I really am sorry, Trish. Not just about the ring, but about everything. About Daniel, about how I handled it. You were right at the park. I told myself I was helping you move on, but really I was just angry that you were doing better than me. That's pathetic. Yeah, it is. But at least you can admit it. I moved toward the door. Mom wants us at a family dinner this Sunday. I told Rachel I'd go. You should come too, really. Don't make me regret it. From Kyle's apartment, I drove to Jennifer Ashford's office. She'd called that morning saying she had news about Caroline. Patricia, come in. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. I have good news and interesting news. Which do you want first? Good news. I could use some. Caroline's attorney contacted me yesterday. With the ring recovered and returned to you, she's withdrawing her claim to the estate. She's acknowledged in writing that Daniel gifted the ring to you and that you're the legal owner. Relief washed over me. What changed her mind? That's the interesting news. Apparently, her attorney did some research and realized they'd lose badly in court. But more than that, Caroline found some letters in her mother's belongings. Correspondence between Daniel's mother and grandmother about the ring. Multiple references to how happy they were that Daniel was giving it to you. How you were perfect for their family. How the ring had found its rightful home. I felt tears prickling my eyes. I never knew Daniel's mother felt that way. Caroline did, and she sat on it. But her attorney convinced her that fighting you would make her look heartless, especially with this documentation. So she agreed to sign the papers. Jennifer slid a document across the desk. This is her sworn statement acknowledging your ownership. The insurance company accepted it this morning. Your claim is approved. Wait, I don't need the insurance payout anymore. I have the ring. True, but you filed a claim for a stolen item. The item was recovered, but you still suffered losses. The stress, the legal fees, the investigation costs. The insurance company is offering a settlement of $15,000 to cover your expenses and close the claim. $15,000. Not the full value, but more than enough to cover Jennifer's fees and compensate for the nightmare I'd been through. I'll take it, I said. That Sunday, I sat at my mother's dining table surrounded by family, Rachel and her husband, their 2 kids, my mother bustling around serving pot roast, and Kyle sitting across from me. Looking nervous but present. Patricia, honey, we're so glad you're here. My mother squeezed my shoulder as she set down a bowl of mashed potatoes. It's been too long since we've all been together. Too long, I agreed, catching Kyle's eye. Dinner was surprisingly normal. The kids chatted about school, Rachel talked about the renovation, and my mother asked about my job. Kyle was mostly quiet, but he helped clear plates and kept the water glasses filled. Small gestures, but deliberate ones. After dinner, after the kids had run off to play and the adults had settled in the living room with coffee, my mother pulled out an old photo album. I was going through these last week, she said, flipping pages. Look, there's you 2 at the beach. You must have been 6 and 9. The photo showed Kyle and me building a sand castle, both sunburned and grinning at the camera. Simpler times, when the worst thing that could happen was a wave destroying your castle. Mom, Rachel said gently, No, it's okay. I took the album, turning pages slowly. There were dozens of photos. Birthdays, holidays, everyday moments captured and preserved. A whole history of being siblings, being family. I stopped on a photo from Daniel's funeral. Kyle standing next to me, his arm around my shoulders, both of us red-eyed and devastated. I'd forgotten about this picture, forgotten that moment. But looking at it now, I remembered how tightly Kyle had held me that day, how he'd stayed by my side through the entire service. That was my brother, too. Not just the person who'd betrayed me, but the person who'd held me together when my world fell apart. Kyle, I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. I'm not ready to forget what happened, but I think I'm ready to start moving forward. He met my eyes across the room. Thank you. That night, back in my apartment, I opened the velvet box one more time. The ring sat there glowing in the lamplight. I'd fought so hard to get it back, spent 6 weeks in agony thinking it was lost forever. And now that I had it, I realized something. It was just a ring. Beautiful, valuable, historically significant, but still just metal and stone. What mattered wasn't the object itself, but what it represented. Daniel's love, his family's acceptance, the future we'd planned together. Those things weren't in the ring. They were in me, in my memories, in the way Daniel had changed my life during the time we had together. Kyle taking the ring hadn't stolen those memories. The robbery hadn't erased that love. I'd been holding on to the ring like it was Daniel himself. Like losing it would mean losing him all over again. But I'd already lost Daniel. He died 4 years ago, and no amount of jewelry preservation could change that. Maybe Kyle had been partially right, in his own twisted way. Maybe I did need to let go, not of Daniel or his memory, but of this idea that I could freeze time by keeping his ring in a box forever. I picked up my phone and opened my photos. Found the picture from the proposal, Daniel on his knee, the ocean behind us, both of us laughing. That moment was real. It would always be real, ring or no ring. Then I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, just like it always had. I wore it for 10 minutes, remembering what it felt like to be engaged, to be planning a future with someone I loved. Then I gently removed it and placed it back in the box. Maybe someday I'll be ready to wear it regularly. Maybe not, but for now I knew it was there, safe, mine. And that was enough. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Kyle. Found a 1-bedroom in Ballard. Moving in next month. Fresh start. Thank you for giving me another chance. I typed back, proud of you. Let me know if you need help moving. Then I got ready for work, made my coffee, and stepped out into a Seattle morning that felt just a little bit brighter than the day before. The ring was back. My family was healing. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.